the Mythic Heroes Season 34 tier list. A little annoyed here. Three of the newest heroes aren't included, including Wukong. So I'm gonna write, I guess, a text-based version, updating them. So Hanzo, Epona, and Wukong. I mean, there's not a ton of data on them right now, but I still think I could give them ratings. But unfortunately, it's not possible. Real quick, I want to talk about how to use this tier list. So basically, like I said, modes are an illusion. This tier list, just go down from S to B and just build the S tier heroes first. But the way the game works now, with the way the bags, the essences are distributed, so basically it's like you get a random, equal distribution of each of the powders and the crystals, right, for the IW weapons. What that means is you want balance across your roster. So you should basically aim, you're going to be building 4, 5, or 6 teams, but you want like, so the way the game works is there's like a over-representation of fighters and supports as good units, right? So like if I start filling out the list, of the F tier heroes, and the D tier heroes, right? You're actually going to see that a lot of this is GM, by the way. I'm going to sort this alphabetically, by the way, but like, what do you notice about all the heroes that I'm putting in right here? Well, they're actually all mages, right? So this is 7 mages thrown out right now, in the worst tiers, right? So in this game, the tanks and the mages are underrepresented compared to the fighters and the supports. So you almost need to force your team to be balanced. And so that means like reasonably strong fighters are actually moved down the rankings, because the more dominant fighters, the Chad Alpha fighters take over them. But basically the way I suggest using this tier list is I'm going to sort them into classes. And then you should build one of each class in order, because you should try and build up IW 600s for all of your best heroes first. So yeah, let's get right into it. So I have my spreadsheet off screen here. So all of these heroes that I just threw up have been used 0% in Champions Arena by the top teams. And then I've also done like an subjective evaluation of like how good I think their abilities are. And I think the main thing that differentiates the bottom. So like, for example, Cleopatra might be the worst hero in the game. Her IW 600 ability isn't very good. This is Cleopatra. In general, the IW 500s are often just, increased scale of an ability, but for the IW 600, so here you see like it basically affects one of her abilities and just increases the stack amount. This is like a kind of linear boost, whereas from the IW 600s you're actually looking for like new kits and new mechanics. So her ISS cost is very expensive. It's 82. The ability's kind of meh, and no one's using her. So she's basically like one of the worst heroes in the game. And when you look at someone like Flora by comparison, if I can just find her. So Flora as well, her usage is 0, and then her ability, like her IW 600 ability, damage really isn't her problem here. So the ability is ranked as like not good compared to a lot of these other IWs that are adding like a ton of utility, or changing the game entirely. This kind of stuff, I mean, it's just not good enough. But then this is a bit subjective here, but the reason that GM, Izanami, and Titania are a slight tier above. So both of these tiers are bad, but I find the bottom row is basically unusable. Whereas the top 3 row, I mean, they do kind of have a niche, right? Like GM, for example, their cost is quite high, but they do a lot of damage. They have this group AOE stun, that can come in quite useful. I've seen not champions, but I've seen players, try and use them before. But they can actually do like a decent amount of damage. They can actually be like pretty decent, I feel. Titania as well. A lot of people feel like she's not very good at all, but her kit is like a kit that impedes and annoys like physical attackers, right? And so I think no one's really tested this because no one uses her, but this altered state ability that locks out physical damage. It's quite niche, and this is an ability where just picture it at the extreme end. So the fifth ability gets her down to 6 seconds, but imagine if you know there was a 800 ability that got her down to 0 seconds, so she just had permanent altered state. Well, then that would mean she would wipe every physical team, right? So this is kind of a scaling thing where maybe she can be a little better with her niche. And then Izanami as well. She's not doing enough damage. Nobody really uses her, but the nature of her kit, just dealing a ton of like AOE damage and being able to tank. Maybe if you scale them all together, I think she has a lot more potential than a loser like Zeus, for example. And I think the IW 600 rankings, especially for some of the heroes who haven't been used, that can kind of be like more subjective and less accurate. But that's kind of it's tough to do that perfectly. And this game is actually like quite well designed, so there's actually not that many heroes that are in these trashy tiers. We're gonna go ahead and add Lubu to the D tier as well. Lubu is a hero that I've seen in action. D Gorger actually built him up all the way, and we've seen him running before, and he's just basically he was theory crafted to be kind of okay, but actually he's not very good. Because I realized that crystals are the pure essences are the main bottleneck for building your account. It's not really the infinity soul seals even. So you don't really want to invest in heroes with a low ISS cost just because you still need to put the precious crystals into them anyways. And so Lubu is quite bad, I would say. I'm just trying to organize these heroes alphabetically and by class. And this game is like very well designed. I think that's actually the only F and D tier heroes in the game, which is quite impressive considering how many heroes there are and how much power creep could have crept in. Okay, so let's start moving some tanks around because there's actually a lot of tanks in the C class. So Artio hasn't really been used in the meta, very new hero. So there's often a bias against some of the newer heroes where they're actually like used more sometimes. In the case of like Apollo by the newer servers, but then also sometimes they're used less here. So RTO basically no one has picked him up. He could be a B tier hero, but I'm not actually sure. And one thing I found from making these videos, I think I just need to be more courageous when I make metagame calls. I've been right a lot of times in the past, but I haven't really pushed my opinions that strongly. I think Gaia actually has a lot of potential. I think I ran over this. I discussed this in other videos, but she's a hero that I think theoretically can actually be quite good. The only problem is no one wants to build an effing Gaia. Hades also, maybe if we actually built him, like Leonidas, who is in his orbit, like similar cost, is more of like a S or A tier hero. So I can definitely see Hades even being argued as a B here. We're gonna put our first controversial kind of hot take here. We're gonna put Marduk. So Marduk has a 45% usage in the most recent data set, 37% blended usage. So he's been used about like 28% of the time. His ISS cost is very high. He's one of the last URs that you want to be building. So I'm going to go ahead and put him in the C tier. And then the final one is going to be Athena. So just putting Athena in here. So she has a pretty high ISS cost. She's actually used in one lineup here, and a few of the newer season players use her. She's actually like quite interesting. Actually, like quite an obnoxious niche because her holy protection protects uh, the lowest damage hero. I think this is why some of those players were using her. So she blocks all damage to herself and then the lowest health by one. So it's very like obnoxiously tanky. Probably used with like a hyper carry, I'm guessing. But yeah, that's why I think some of the Korean players were using her. She could be B, I guess, but she's not really used enough, and she's outclassed by a lot of higher tier tanks, which we'll get to shortly. Okay, after that we have two venerable fighters here. So Loki, usage rate consistently dropping, so now he's down to 10% usage rate, and Medusa, her usage rate is starting to see a spike. So she's up to 18% now. Both of them have medium ISS costs. Both of them can be argued to be B tier as well, because they're both very good in PvE engagements. But we'll take a look. Once the final tier list is done, I'll start moving units. I think you can definitely also agree that all of these heroes, maybe with a few exceptions, are clearly better than the heroes below them. And we always want to do those kinds of sanity checks as it goes along. And we have only one C tier mage, that's Mirasaki. She was used in a few lineups. She's been rotated out entirely, but her ISS cost is 0. So if they ever do something with, pure essences, make them a little more available, she should jump up. I don't think she's quite D tier. I think she can be okay. A lot of people aren't going to build Prometheus because he's a UR. She kind of fills his function up. And then finally we end with two supports here. Aphrodite, one champion actually, one winner is actually using her. Not sure how good she is really. She's also a newer hero. And then we have Joan. Joan's usage is starting to slip. Both of these are medium cost. Joan is used in 18%, so 2 of the 11 lineups were using Joan, but I think she's a bit outclassed. She's kind of annoying. Her and Tangun are both heroes that actually function as tanks, and I think should have just been classified as tanks, but they're classified as supports in terms of resources and everything like that, so they have to deal with the logjam of better supports above them. And that does it for the C tier. So every time I do this, so I did discuss some of these heroes could actually be better, but yeah, this is kind of what we're going with here. Moving into the B tier, so this is solid heroes. They could be good if there's not a lot of data on them. They could even be A or even S. Who knows? But there's not enough data on them. The first hero here is one of the biggest jumps, and that's Anubis. So Anubis is a tank. Now he's used in 2 out of 11 lineups, but the 2 players that have used him are T-Train, who's basically T-Train and Quinn, who are 2 of the most successful Champions Arena players. And then T-Train basically copies a bunch of lineups from one of my guildmates, Papa, who's also been using Anubis for a long time. So Anubis is, endorsed by 2 of the strongest players. Medium ISS cost. The ISS reduces like the damage, mostly of Amaterasu. I think like that's what he's being built to counter. So basically very good. We're gonna have, actually it looks like Typhon can almost be an A tier. He was used in 82% of lineups from the 11 teams. So we're actually gonna make a on-the-fly adjustment and move him up to A tier here. So we'll skip over Typhon. The next one here that's also a big gainer is Poseidon. And so Poseidon jumped up to 18% of lineups as well, 2 out of 11. His niche, he's very good even at low investment, because he tanks damage very well. It's built into his kit, but his ISS cost is also very low. It's only 4. And I think when it comes to the mage and the tank units, the ISS cost actually does matter if it's like 0 or 4, because you're gonna have extra crystals that you're gonna want to like force use basically on a tank or a mage anyways. So then if they don't cost ISSs to get to IW 600 on top of that, then you're going to see like heavy investment in them being pretty good. And that's why I think you see both players who built Poseidon actually built him to 100% IW 600. After that, we have Aladdin. This is another pick that was made popular by Papa. Papa's not in our top champions rankings anymore because he doesn't spend that much money and he's not really winning the titles as much. But you know, his DNA is all in the game still. And Aladdin is something that he popularized. So Aladdin is up to 36% now, only 32 ISS cost. Very tricky, unique hero, you know, like leaving him alone. I mean, he does cause some trouble here. This one might be a bit controversial. So I have Dionysus as a B support as well. So Dionysus, I'm going to call him Dionysus. Actually, I'm going to Google how to pronounce. Okay, I had it right. Dionysus was used in, you know, 1 to 2 lineups in the previous 3 seasons. He recently went down to 0. It's actually Pyre Husky who's running like the very kinky Aphrodite or Dionysus here. But Dionysus' niche is he's very good against bosses now because of his IW abilities. He definitely pumps up the damage you do against bosses. And boss damage is actually very important now because of the Sinful Abyss, or I mean that BDSM name they have. What do they call that thing? Yeah, Sinful Abyss. You've been a thinful boy. Anyways, the Sinful Abyss. So he's very good there. So yeah, I think he should be a B tier. I think with the team increase, I mean you can build him up to, you know, IW 500, and then just go ahead and use him, you know, in one of your lineups. Yeah. So it's very good against bosses. The IW 600, I mean, probably too much to invest in, but his ISS cost is only 4. But I mean, I wouldn't super. There's not like a ton of great supports to use crystals on. You know, we'll talk about them as they move up. But yeah, I mean, I could see even, you know, building up to IW 600. I know you know, the top whales are doing that. And then finally, we have Naga, perennial healer. Can be argued to even be in the A class. She has 64% usage, so her usage is spiked from around 35% in the previous 3 to 64% now. She might end up settling on A, but we're gonna have her at B for now. Okay, and our only mage is gonna be a bit controversial. So this is Persephone. She only has 9% usage, so only 1 champion used her here. Her blended, so season 30, so 4 seasons ago, she was at 27%, and now she's down to 10%. I really don't understand it. She has very strong niche of reducing physical damage by 25%. Her abilities aren't that bad either. Her ISS cost is very low. I think she's being slept on pretty heavily. I plan to build her myself, so I don't really understand why she's being ignored. Also, I messed up the order of these. I should have done fighters next. So let's do fighters. It looks like Wukong is coming in around B tier as well, although he's 36% of, so like 4 out of the 11 champions decided to build him all the way, which I guess they theory crafted it that he's really good. You know, we put him at like B/A for now, but he could end up S. You know, we don't really have any data on him to know. Although the fact that so many of the champions built him probably means he's like really good, I would say. So Wukong looks like an A. I would put him at an A to start. But for the B tier fighters, so we have Archimedes. Archimedes, thankfully, I have a ton invested in him, so his use rate jumped back up to like 28% with the change forcing everyone to add an extra team. I mean, he is a damage carry, so he is someone that, you know, we can go ahead and pencil in as being able to anchor a team at least. Artemis, Archimedes, Artemis. So Artemis usage spiked as well, so she's up to 55%. Her ISS cost is a bit more expensive than Archimedes. And then I don't want to be too premature here, but I'm going to throw Oberon into the B tier as well. So Oberon spiked this time as well, up to 36%. He was barely being used at all in the previous 3 seasons, but I guess he goes well into the green lineups with the Nuas and the Prometheuses and the Kirans. He has very low ISS cost, but fighters are a very overrepresented class. One interesting thing about Oberon is I actually marked his IW 600 ability as not very good, but it actually might be okay. I mean, I'm not really sure. Maybe he gets to spam it a bunch. I'm not really sure, but I mean, yeah, I didn't think that stealing like 25 energy or oh, okay, so it's an auto attack. Okay, so I'm gonna reevaluate that. So it's not actually even a triggered ability. It's just like literally every time he's attacking, he's stealing 2% health and 25 energy. And I'm pretty sure he attacks quite often. So I'm gonna change that a bit. I don't think it's a bad ability anymore. It seems pretty decent to me. This is an example to me of something that changes someone's kit entirely. And that fills the B tier, and we're already at 20 minutes. Uh-oh, I need to think of I think because this is the first one that I'm setting up like this, it's gonna be a bit slower. And then from now on, I'm gonna be updating the previous edition, so it should be faster from this point on. It's actually funny. I thought the explanation video would be longer, and it turns out that making the list is way longer. And one hero I'm actually moving down here, so Hercules. Hercules is used in only like 45% of lineups, so his use didn't really spike that much. His ISS cost is quite low. It's only 20. I think people are having a tough time deciding between the different blue tanks, but Hercules, low ISS cost. Tanks are kind of underrepresented. He could be an A, but yeah, I think he's like close enough to Poseidon right now. Maybe it could be argued to be higher. And so these remaining heroes are like much tougher. So, and I'm actually going to reevaluate things as I do them. So let's like switch up the order a little bit, and let's go straight to the S tier. So the S tier, there's a few heroes that are really easy. So Amaterasu is an easy S tier. So these heroes are used in 100% of lineups, and so these are, to me, very easy S tiers. And you see 3 supports here, so Tangun, Morgan, and Western Queen. I mean, you see these heroes, all 4 of these heroes actually grouped up together quite often, but I think they're very easy S tiers because they have 100% representation. Kirin is going to join us in the S tier. Kirin is 100% usage this time and only a medium 36 ISS cost. And then we're going to have big homie Oda join us in S tier as well. He's also 100% representation, very high ISS cost, but he's also the best PvE unit in the game, so I'm very glad. If you've been tracking my journey in this game, he's one of my very first hero basically that I built, so I have a huge crush on Oda. And inexplicably, I mean, this didn't really make my job that much easier actually, but I am gonna go ahead and put Lilith into the S tier as well, if I can find her. Where is this Lilith? I got her. So we're gonna go ahead and put Lilith in the S tier. So as I said, her usage jumped up back up to 100%. Her ISS cost is only 54. And she's actually a hard carry because she does a ton of damage. So we're going to put her in S tier. Basically, if a champion is used 100% of the time, I'm going to go ahead and bring her up. And Prometheus, just contrasting here, I'm going to bring it to the A tier. So he's also 100% usage, but his blended usage is slightly lower than Lilith from the past 3, and then his ISS cost is 98. So his blended usage is a bit lower, and his ISS cost is double. So that's the line I'm going to draw for now. These two, their placement here right now is very, what's the word? It's open to change, because the next Champions Arena, if either of these heroes is like off the mark, then we're going to go ahead and lower them. And I'm going to go ahead and put Nua as well. And man, I don't like putting 4 supports into the S tier, so I'm actually going to bring her down. So she's also 100% usage this round. Her blended usage is up there with Lilith. The reason Lilith is an S and she's not is because, as you see here, there's already 3 supports that you need to put your resources into. I want to build this tier list so that each tier, especially the S and the A tiers, have an equal distribution of heroes, and that's because you're supposed to build them one at a time to make the best account possible. We don't have any tanks up here, so we're going to go ahead and add a few tanks. And YSS is going to be one of our S tier tanks. So he's 81% blended, but the most recent season 33, two of the players decided not to use him, but one of them, the BR player, I have no clue why he didn't use him. He had him at IW 600. Maybe he forgot or something, but he left him out and then finished in the top 8. I think he got punished. I think he should have used him, and this would put his YSS's usage at like 90% plus. And for the second hero at S tier, I'm kind of forcing the tiers, not like a crazy extent, but slightly. So Odin, 76% blended usage, which is still higher than Typhon, Leo, and Ninerzag. And then his ISS cost is very low; it's only 16. But it's a bad ability. So he dropped 12% this time. But he was averaging around 80%, which is much higher than the other tanks in this list. And so we're going to put Odin as the S tier, which means that we can go ahead and fill out the A tier tanks here. So it's going to be Typhon, so 82% recent usage, 68% blended, very high ISS cost, 132, which is the highest in the game. But he's still usable without IW 600. You don't need to necessarily build it, and I think he's basically just a hero that's really good in PvE, really good with Oda, really good even unbuilt. And then Leo is also 82% usage, 67% blended. He's a medium ISS cost of 48, but basically the clear definition of an A tier hero. We're going to bring Hela up as an A tier support, so she has a very high ISS cost, 66, blended usage 65%, but she just spiked to 82% in the recent one. I think she's very versatile. I think she has a very good niche here, and contrasting that with a few other supports, actually there's quite a logjam at support here. I feel like Iset is a very tough one. I mean, oh man, these supports are really tough to deal with. Actually, let's save them for last. I'm gonna do like a little thing here. I'm gonna put Freya into the S tier as well. So Freya's niche is, she's very good for kind of burst damage, boosting people at the start. I think she's also a hero that can kind of anchor lineups because of how good she is. She has a lot of synergy with basically every green hero because of her ability. She does decent damage by herself. So I'm going to bring Freya into the S tier. She has 78% blended usage, so 1% higher than Susanoo, but she's also very good in like different game modes. And then her ISS cost is 18 below Susanoo. I'm going to bring Susanoo in as a A tier unit. He has a very strong niche of being able to, get into the back line and attack here. His ISS cost is medium, 50, blended usage 77% here. And Susanoo's kind of interesting because he should be contrasted with Cam as well. So Cam just jumped to 73%. So she was used in only one team less than than Susanoo was. Her ISS cost is medium, like quite similar. She's also a newer hero. My hunch, Susanoo has always been like historically used more than her. I guess I'll go ahead and put Cam into the B tier. She kind of feels like she should be even an A tier hero. And we'll go ahead and add Nephthys to the B tier. She's still around like 41% blended, very low ISS cost. There's actually not that many great mages to use. I think Neff can almost even be argued to be an A tier. But the way it's working is all the top whales are using Amaterasu, Lilith, and Prometheus as their mages. And for someone like me who's not a Giga Whale, like I'm not really planning on building Prometheus or maybe Lilith. So I think Neff is someone. Do we have any mages in this class right now? I think she can almost even be argued to be, and like Gabriel and Neff are both very interesting. Gabriel's 51% blended, 32 ISS cost. I think actually it works better to put them into A. So now you have Amaterasu, Lilith that you might want to invest in, and then you have Gabriel and Neff as the next mages, and Persephone. Yeah, I like this a lot. Yeah, I think this is basically correct. Nin Herzog is the only tank left, so she jumped up to 73%. She's a newer UR, very high ISS cost, but she's basically been pretty, what's the word, prevalent in the meta. I'm going to give her an A tier. I think part of the reason she's not being used as much is because she's newer, so she's more expensive. So we'll go ahead and put her in A tier. So that leaves fighters and support basically. So for fighters, there's a bit of a logjam here. So Susanoo is the last one we placed. He's 77% blended and 50 ISS cost. Compare that to Kieran being 87% and 36 and 100% usage compared to 82% usage. You can see why, Kieran can be argued as a higher tier. The thing about this is I do want to be a little more sensitive to URs because so I'm gonna bring Cam back out because this top list here, so you have Kieran and Freya, and then if you're not going to invest in Oda, then Susa would actually be S tier here. When I look for A tier, so like Apollo, for example, Apollo I had very high, right? So Apollo I had as 43% in the previous 3 seasons, and he just dropped to 27%. And I think one of the reasons he dropped to 27% this time is because I cut a lot of the Korean newer teams out. Like my era of players, we all started with Oda and Apollo basically, so we all kind of ended up building them. I still think Apollo can be really strong, but I guess based off the blended kind of usage and stuff, he actually belongs in B tier, which is a bit unfortunate. I'm not sure if I agree with that, but just comparing them, so Artemis and Apollo are both 40% and 35% blended. Apollo has 1/3 of the ISS cost, but you're not really going to have crystals to build him anyways. And then Cam is like 55% and 40 and used in 7 lineups. So I think Cam is actually a tier above them. So let's go ahead and do that. And then the final one might be tough to place is Lucifer, and Lucifer is 74% blended, so 19% above Cam, but about double the ISS cost. So I think Lucifer is someone that we can feel okay about putting into the A tier. So it's kind of building itself out in a way that I do like. I don't mind it one bit. And finally, the logjam at support here. Okay, so Tangan, Morgan, and Western Queen are snap includes into S tier because they're at 100%. I'm going to filter my spreadsheet for supports only. And I think support is just something. The good thing about support though is they don't have a lot of IW 600s that are like super mandatory. So you know you normally start with Western Queen and then just start building them. We have 3 supports down here, 2 supports down here. The thing is, I feel pretty strong that Theo is a beast. I think Nua at 100%, at 100% and 80% blended, and how versatile she is. I think we're gonna bring her into S tier. Set is 4% lower blended, 76%, but more than double the ISS cost, but also very good in modes. I think Nua has basically Iset has basically always been an A tier support. So comparing Iset to Hela, for example, as a sanity check, Hela is 11% lower blended, but half the ISS cost. Idun is very similar to Hela. I think they basically need to move together. That leaves Faust and Cassandra. So Cassandra's down to 57% blended. She has a very low ISS cost. I think before I was kind of overrating her ISS cost, but as you can see, you don't get enough crystals to go around anyways. So she's gonna move into. And finally, that's going to leave Faust. And Faust is 72% blended, 36 ISS, but recently moved to 82%. I think Faust is, again, borderline S tier even, but I can't quite justify it. So I think he's just going to be a clear A tier. So going over this, so, you know, the way the tier list is supposed to be used, God damn, there's like a 40-minute video. So you have 2 tanks. You should just go ahead and build those first. You have 2 fighters, and then you have 2 kind of high-cost mages. But you should, you know, basically focus on these mages if you can. And then you have all of these supports, and 2 of them are URs. So you should focus on, you know, Morgan and Western Queen for sure. Definitely Western Queen. The next tier we have 3 tanks, 3 fighters. It's pretty good. I would build Susanoo most likely after. And then you have these 2 mages that you can use if you're not going to build Prometheus. And then you have 4 supports. So the one thing I don't like about this list is there are like too many supports in here. But I would say that you should not really worry about the IW 600s for the support so much, and just kind of build a bunch of them evenly. But like for example, I need 4 teams, so 20 units, and I mean you should never put 8 supports in there, right? So yeah, I actually ran the numbers off screen for how the top 11 teams distributed it. So they had 35% supports and 16% mages. So they were basically using 2 supports for every 1 mage. They had 20% tanks and 29% fighters. So they had 99 supports, 83 fighters, 58 tanks, and 45 mages. So, but like if you're not like an ultra whale like these players, you know, you're gonna want to use all of your essences and crystals, like, you know, the way they come in. So I think like weighting, you know, heroes upwards because they need to soak the resources, I think it makes a lot of sense here. And so here, I mean, I have 4 mages and I have 8 supports, and a lot of the supports too, you might not necessarily want to build out their IW 600 anyways. So, you know, again here, I'm filtering off screen, and the IW average percentage rate for all these supports is only 60% across all of the whales. The only full 100% IW is Western Queen, and then even some of the really good ones like Nua aren't being used at all. And so if I sort by the top blended usage, so like if I cut off around Hela, right? So Hela, then the average IW 600 rate is only 61% still. So it's basically Western Queen and then maybe Nua and then everyone else can just be built kind of like separately. So yeah, I mean, I don't super love the fact that there's like so many supports up here, um, but then it's funny, right? Because there's actually 4 down here as well, Aladdin through. So I think it's basically just going to be 4 per tier. And I think one thing uh, IGG could have done is like Tangen should have been a tank for sure, and you know, different things like that to balance it out. There's really nothing I can kind of do about it. So that's like the only thing I don't like about this list. But this is the final tier list, so we're gonna go ahead and save this. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Would appreciate any discussion here. Thanks for watching.